There is a number floating around the internet that says your empty driveway is worth $3,000 a year, maybe more, just sitting there, doing nothing. And the apps that want you to list it will show you that number on the way in the door. What they don't show you, until you're already inside, is the other number, the one that's closer to 40 bucks a month. So today, I'm going to put both numbers on the table, run the actual math, and tell you exactly where the gap comes from and who's quietly standing inside it. Here's what you're going to walk away knowing. First, the real average a normal driveway earns versus the headline you got sold. Second, the one factor that decides whether your driveway is worth $40 or $400. And third, the platforms taking a cut you probably didn't budget for, and how big that cut actually is. Let's get into it. Point 1. The headline number is real. It's just not yours. When a parking app advertises that you can make up to $300 a month, that word "up to" is doing an enormous amount of lifting. It is technically true. Somebody, somewhere, is making that. The question nobody asks is who and where and what makes their driveway different from yours. So I went and pulled the actual ranges these platforms publish themselves. On Neighbor, one of the bigger peer-to-peer space rental sites, a driveway is listed as earning between $50 and $150 a month. A general parking space, $50 to $300. A garage, $50 to $500. Notice the floor on every single one of those is $50. The floor is the part they don't put on the billboard. Here's the thing about a range that wide. The top end isn't a typical result. It's the ceiling for a perfect spot in a perfect location. The average host is sitting much closer to the bottom of that range than the top. When you see up to 150, the honest read is probably somewhere between 50 and 80, unless your location is special. And we're about to talk about what special actually means because that's the whole game. Point 2. Location isn't a factor. It's the only factor. I want to be really clear about this because it's the single most important thing in this entire play. Renting your driveway is not a strategy. It's a lottery ticket where your address already decided whether you won before you bought it. If you live in a quiet suburb, 20 minutes from anything with plenty of street parking nobody fights over, your driveway is worth almost nothing. Not because you did anything wrong, because there's no demand. Nobody is circling your block desperate for a place to leave their car. The math just isn't there. Now flip it. You live 3 blocks from a stadium, or next to a hospital where staff park all day, or in a dense city neighborhood where a parking spot is genuinely scarce and people will pay real money to stop driving in circles. That's where the headline numbers live. Listings for monthly parking in expensive city markets, places like Seattle, run $200 to $300 a month. And in the densest urban cores, you'll see spots advertised even higher. In New York City, the average listed monthly spot has been reported around $400. But look at what those numbers have in common. Stadium, hospital, dense downtown, scarcity. Every one of them is a location where parking is a genuine problem someone will pay to solve. Your driveway only prints money if it sits on top of somebody else's parking pane. No pain nearby, no payday. That's not pessimism. That's just supply and demand standing in your driveway. So before you list anything, the honest question isn't, how do I make money renting my driveway? It's, is there a parking shortage within walking distance of my house? If the answer is no, the rest of this doesn't matter. And I'd rather tell you that now than let you spend a weekend taking photos for $40 a month. Point 3. The cut. Everybody downstream of you is getting paid first. Let's say you've got a real spot. Demand is there. Now we have to talk about who else eats before you do, because the number that lands in your bank account is not the number on your listing. These platforms don't run for free. On Neighbor, the host pays a payment processing fee, just under 5% of your rental price plus 30 cents per reservation. That one's relatively gentle. But Neighbor leans toward longer storage-style rentals. The bigger bites come from the parking-specific platforms. Spot Hero, one of the largest parking apps in the country, takes a commission of around 15% on monthly parking rentals, plus roughly $1 on every recurring monthly transaction. Other parking platforms run similar. Spacer takes around 15%. CurbFlip takes about 16% and adds more on top if you process through certain payment methods. And some third-party arrangements layer fees, so the effective cut climbs toward 20, even 30% of the booking. So run it forward. Say you list a city spot at $200 a month. Sounds great. Take 15% off the top for the platform. You're at 170. Knock off the recurring transaction fee. Now factor in the months it sits empty between renters, because parking demand isn't always year-round and renters leave. Suddenly your $200 a month is averaging closer to $140 across the year. Still real money, still passive. But it's not the $200 you saw on the listing, and it was never going to be. And this is exactly why some hosts skip the apps entirely and rent the spot directly. A flyer, a local post, a handshake with someone who works nearby. No 15% cut, no transaction fee. You trade the platform's convenience and payment protection for keeping the whole check. For a single long-term renter you trust, that math often wins. The platforms are renting you their audience. If you can find the renter yourself, you don't owe them the toll. So let's put the whole thing together honestly. The suburban driveway with no nearby demand? It's a $50 a month play at best, and realistically not worth the listing photos. The internet's $3,000 a year promise is built for the other house, the one near the stadium, the hospital, the train station, the no parking downtown. For that house, the play is genuinely good. Low effort, real recurring income, an asset that was already just sitting there. $200 to $400 a month, minus the platform's cut, is a legitimately nice number for doing almost nothing. The whole game is one question asked before you list. Is parking scarce near me? If yes, this is one of the cleaner passive plays out there, and you should go rent your spot directly to skip the cut where you can. If no, the apps will still happily list you, take their fee, and let you find out the slow way. Now you don't have to. That's the play. Now you know where the money actually is.